Shalom Pekudei, Shabbos Chazak, and very, very exciting times. This week's Parsha, after the last 5 weeks that we learned about the instructions for building the Mishkan, how to build the Mishkan, how big everything in the Mishkan had to be, how the Kalim were made, and everything that had to do with the Mishkan. Finally, we come this week to Shalom Pekudei. It's also Shabbos Chazak. Can you believe it? Baruch Hashem, we were Zoicha to finish another Seder of Chumash, it's Seder Shemois, with our Shiurim on Nesivos Shalom, and we come finally. The Mishkan was up and running. They had built the Mishkan a few times, taken it down, they practiced, they had spring training, and now the season was beginning. It's starting with Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The Mishkan is open, and the pasuk tells us as follows: B'yoyim hachodesh harishon bi'echad lachodesh Tokim es Mishkan Oyel Moyed. That's the pasuk in the Torah. Very interesting way of writing things. B'yoyim hachodesh harishon bi'echad lachodesh. All the Mefarshim ask right away. They ask on the lashon of this pasuk, what's the purpose of the first word of the pasuk of B'yoyim? Why do you have to say in that day? The pasuk really should just have said B'chodesh harishon bi'echad lachodesh. In the first month, in Chodesh Nisan, bi'echad lachodesh, on the first day of the month. What's B'yoyim hachodesh harishon? First question. Chazal tell us something very interesting about that day, the day of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the day that the Mishkan opened. Chazal tell us, the Gemara, Masechta Shabbos Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis, that Oisoi Hayoim, on that day that the Mishkan opened, Notal Eser Atoros, 10 different crowning things, 10 different special things took place on that day that the Mishkan opened. And Chazal tell us, list off what these 10 things were, and it says like this. First thing it says is Rishon L'Maaseh Bereshis. It's the first day of Maaseh Bereshis. Well, obviously we're going to have to explain what that means. Rishon L'Nesiim, the first day for the Nesiim. Rishon L'Kahuna, Rishon L'Avoida, 10 different things that took place on that day. So the question is, like we just mentioned, what is the first thing in that list? The first thing it says, Rishon L'Maaseh Bereshis. What is that doing here? It's definitely different than all the other 9 things, the other 9 Ataros that happened on that day, because the 9 other things actually happened on that day. It was the first day for Kahuna. We have Kahanim sitting here that are going to get to do the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash also. And it's going to be a very special day, Rishon L'Kahuna, the first day that they get to serve. Rishon, besides that, the Rishon L'Avodah, first day the Avodah was done. But what does it mean? Rishon L'Maaseh Bereshis. They opened the Mishkan, and it was the first day of Maaseh Bereshis. What does that mean? Maaseh Bereshis happened a couple thousand years before that. Why was the opening day of the Mishkan called, in the list of special things that happened that day, it's called Rishon L'Maaseh Bereshis. So really, it happened, Maaseh Bereshis we know happened on the first day of creation, right? Like a couple thousand years before the Mishkan opened. So why is it counted among the other things that actually happened on the day of Hakamas HaMishkan? Furthermore, we could ask, the Gemara, Masechta Megillah, Daf Yud Amud Beis, tells us that on the day of Hakamas HaMishkan, there was a simcha for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just as the simcha was of Bria Shemaim Ba'aretz. Once again, we're going back to creation. We're going back to the original, to the first day of creation. The simcha that Hashem had when the Mishkan was open, when the Mishkan was built, was the simcha of the great simcha that was also by the creation of Shemayim v'Aretz. So how do we explain all of these things? First of all, why are we even talking about creation of Shemayim v'Aretz when we're opening the Mishkan? And also, why is the simcha of the Mishkan compared to Brias Shemayim v'Aretz? What is actually that connection? So it's brought down in the Psikta Rabasi on the Pasuk. The Pasuk tells us, Vayar Moshe as kol ha-malacha. Moshe Rabbeinu saw all the work that he did for the Mishkan. He saw all the malacha. V'hinei asu oisa. That's the Pasuk in the Torah. And Chazal tell us that the word ha-malacha, what's it referring to? It says Vayar Moshe as kol ha-malacha. It doesn't say malacha, it says ha-malacha. So Chazal tell us that it's referring to Meleches Shamayim v'Aretz. Once again, we keep getting tied up in Ma'aseh Bereshis, which seemingly happened 2,000 years before that. Again, we're bringing Ma'aseh Bereshis into the work now of the Mishkan. What are all these connections to from the Mishkan to Shamayim v'Aretz? And there's another thing. If you want to even add an icing to the cake, you want to add another question. We need to point out. Gemara says in Masechta Brachos, Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. The Gemara says that Betzalel. We know that Betzalel was the one in charge of building the Mishkan. And what made Betzalel special? There were many things that made Betzalel special. Mepharshim tell us all the special things and the talents that Betzalel had. But the one factor that Betzalel had that really gave him the capability to build the Mishkan is that Betzalel knew a certain secret. He knew the secret of the formulation of the letters that were used to create Shamayim v'Aretz. And he noticed that here we are again, talking about Shemayim v'Aretz, and Betzalel took those letters and those tzerufim and those things he's able to put together, and with that koyach, he was able to build the Mishkan. So what is all of this? So we have a lot of questions, but we're going to answer with a beautiful teretz from the Nesivos Shalom. Nesivos Shalom gives us one thought to answer up all of our questions that we have here. The Medrash Tanchuma in Parshas Bechukoisai tells us about the commandment of the Mishkan. Medrash Tanchuma says the original commandment of the Mishkan, you remember we spoke about it a few weeks ago in Parshas Terumah, the Asuli Mikdash v'Shachanti b'Soicham. That commandment, why did Hashem give that commandment? Very famous, everybody knows. The Medrash Tanchuma tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol, he has a place in Shemayim. And he had a place up there. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have a dira b'tachtoinim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have a place to live, believe it or not, in our physical world, in our world of Gashmias, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have a place. And that was why the tzivui was given of the Asuli Mikdash v'Shachanti b'Soicham. Hashem wanted a dwelling place here in Olam Hazeh, here on this world. And that was the reason that commandment, the reason why Hashem wanted that, because Chazal tell us also that the purpose of the entire creation of this world was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should have a place. That was the purpose. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Shamayim v'Aretz. He created the world in order to have a place to live on this world, which is a very sobering thought for every one of us also, when there is no Beis HaMikdash, there is no Mishkan, Hashem is still looking for a place in this world. Hashem Kaviyachol needs a place, and every person in their home, in their heart, in their place, needs to create an environment where the Shekhinah wants to live. But the purpose of the world, the Asuli Mikdash Shachanti b'Soicham, that was the purpose of creation. Hashem wanted to have a place to live on this world. So Nesivos Shalom tells us, it comes out that up until this point of building the Mishkan, up until this point now, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when the Mishkan was opened, when the Mishkan was finally built, up until this point, the purpose of creation had not been fulfilled. Hashem created a world, created Shemayim v'Aretz for one purpose, for the purpose to have a place to live here, and he never had a place to live. He never had a place. It was only fulfilled on this day of Hakamas HaMishkan. Zok and Nesivos Shalom, now we could understand why there was a simcha for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just as in the days of Bria Shemayim v'Aretz. The simcha was because it wasn't complete. It was exactly the same thing. Hashem built the world, created the world for that purpose, to have a house, a home on this world of Gashmias, and up until this point, from Bria Shemayim v'Aretz, from the Sheishes Yemei Bereshis up until this point, the creation was not completed. This, having a Mishkan, was a completion of creation. And so too, we asked also, we could explain now why the word B'yoim is used. It says B'yoim, right? The first pasuk that we brought down, B'yoim HaChodesh HaRishon. It doesn't say HaChodesh HaRishon, but HaChodesh HaRishon. It says B'yoim HaChodesh HaRishon. The reason the Torah uses the word B'yoim, says in Nesivos Shalom, it's very important because Chazal tell us that the first day of Nisan at that time was on a Sunday. It was the beginning of a week also. One thing we know is beginning of a month, but it was also beginning of the week. And we learned that from B'yoim HaChodesh HaRishon. B'yoim is going on the month, and it's going on the week also. It's going on both of them. And the Torah is telling us here that it was on Sunday, but not just Stam B'yoim on that day, on Sunday, because we need to know. It's not like we're interested in the calendar right now, figuring out what day of the week Rosh Chodesh Nisan was. It says B'yoim on a Sunday because it's very important that we know on a Sunday. What happened on the original first Sunday of the world? When Hashem created Bereshis Bara Elokim, it's a Shemayim v'Yes Haaretz. That was a Sunday. So this was the B'yoim. This was the B'yoim. This was that day. On that day when Hashem created Bereshis Bara Elokim, Es HaShamayim v'Yes Haaretz, that day was not complete yet. So fast forward all these a couple of thousand years to when the Mishkan was being built, and now B'yoim, it's that same day now, the day of Bria Shemayim v'Aretz was now complete. And now on that same day, the original purpose of creation is now being completed. The tachlis of building the world had been reached. And that is something that we need to understand. First of all, what Hakamas HaMishkan is, what it means to have a Hakamas HaMishkan, b'soich kol echad ve'echad, as we learned, means b'soich kol echad ve'echad, in each person, and also how important it is, the Hakamas HaMishkan, what it means for how it was the culmination and the completion of the original plan in the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a place, and on this day, B'yoim, Hashem finally finished that first day of creation. Now everything came together. So now, Shabbos Chazak, we could all get chizuk from Chazak, v'nis Chazek, that we should all get chizuk from learning about the Mishkan, that all of us should be zoicha to build a Mishkan in our own homes, to make our place. You're not just building a place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When your house, when your place is a place of Hashrois Hashchina, you're also helping HaKadosh Baruch Hu complete the entire purpose of the creation of the world. Let's learn that. Let's internalize that lesson. It should be a schus for everybody, and it should be a Shabbos of Chizuk, Chazak, v'nis Chazek.